What if the fall of Rome wasn't really about barbarians at the gates, but bankers in the temples? What if the empire that conquered the world was quietly conquered by its own currency? We all think Rome fell because of wars, decadence, or weak emperors, but what if the real reason was money itself? The same force shaping our own world today? Before Rome burned, its coins lost their shine. The denarius, once a symbol of strength, became a tool of manipulation. Inflation soared, trust collapsed, and a civilization that built marble cities found itself crumbling under the invisible weight of debt. Today, as our economies print trillions and the markets wobble, the echoes of ancient Rome feel eerily familiar. So let's go back to see how money, not the sword, destroyed the greatest empire on earth. Setting the stage, the Golden Foundation. Rome didn't start as an empire. It began as a republic built on discipline, agriculture, and a relatively honest economy. In the early days, wealth came from hard labor and land, not speculation. The Roman denarius, the silver coin, was pure and trusted across the Mediterranean. It was the foundation of trade, the lifeblood of soldiers, and the pride of the people. But then came the conquests. The Roman army expanded into Africa, Asia, and Europe, bringing back unimaginable treasures. Gold and silver flooded into Rome. The government grew rich, but so did corruption. Senators started competing for luxury, not honor. And soon, the idea of money shifted from a means of stability to a weapon of power. The rise, when prosperity turned to addiction in the 2nd century BCE, Rome was unstoppable. But prosperity came with a price. Massive landowners, known as latifundia, bought out small farmers. Slaves replaced citizens as the main workforce. The middle class, the backbone of the republic, began to vanish. To keep the poor quiet, politicians introduced the famous bread and the circuses, free food and the entertainment funded by taxes and the conquest. It worked temporarily. But as the empire grew, so did its expenses. Armies needed pay. Roads, walls, and the temples needed maintenance. Soon, the cost of empire exceeded its income. And that's when the emperors turned to the most dangerous solution in economics, debasement. The breaking point, the death of the denarius around 64, Emperor Nero faced financial ruin after the Great Fire of Rome. His solution: reduce the silver content in the denarius. It seemed harmless, one small change to stretch resources. But that single act set a precedent. Each emperor after Nero followed the same path. By the time of Emperor Caracalla in the 3rd century, coins contained barely half the silver they once did. Under Diocletian, even less. Inflation exploded. Soldiers demanded higher pay. Farmers couldn't afford food. Merchants refused to accept imperial coins, turning instead to barter or foreign currency. The Roman people had lost faith not just in their money, but in their leaders. The fallout, inflation, inequality, and the collapse. What happens when people stop trusting money? They stop building. They stop saving. They start surviving. Inflation in late Rome reached catastrophic levels. Prices for basic goods rose tenfold. The government responded with price controls, punishing anyone who charged too much. It didn't work. Farmers abandoned their fields. Black markets flourished. Meanwhile, the rich, especially senators and the generals, hoarded gold, land, and the slaves. The poor grew poorer, bound to their masters by debt. The once free citizens of Rome became serfs in all but name. To keep the empire afloat, Rome relied on taxes so heavy that some citizens literally fled to enemy territory. The Roman tax collector became more feared than the barbarian raider. And as the economy decayed, so did the army. Without stable money, soldiers were paid in goods or promises. Loyalty faded. When the Visigoths sacked Rome in 410, the empire had already collapsed from within. The barbarians merely stepped over the ruins. The failed fixes, bandages on a broken system. Desperate emperors tried to reverse the collapse. Diocletian introduced new coins, strict wage laws, and fixed prices, but these only strangled trade further. Constantine later tried to restore faith by introducing the gold solidus, a coin so pure it lasted 1,000 years in the Byzantine Empire. But it was too late for Rome. Its people no longer trusted the system. Once the economic foundation cracked, even strong leadership couldn't rebuild it. Rome didn't fall in a single night. It dissolved over centuries, eaten away by its own greed and fiscal short-sightedness. Modern parallels. History rhymes now. Here's where things get uncomfortable. Because the patterns are back. In 2020 alone, tahu, Federal Reserve printed more money than in the previous 2 centuries combined. Global debt has passed $300 trillion, that is more than 3 times the world's GDP. Inflation, once thought dead, has returned with a vengeance. Governments are once again spending beyond their means, promising benefits without the resources to sustain them. Ordinary people struggle with prices while the rich multiply their wealth through financial speculation, just as Roman elites did 2,000 years ago. When currencies lose trust, societies fracture. And as Rome proved, even the mightiest empire can fall not by invasion, but by inflation. 3 takeaways, then the final warning. So, what can we learn from Rome's financial downfall? First, every empire's money reflects its morality. When greed replaces discipline, collapse is inevitable. Second, printing or debasing currency might buy time, but it always steals from the future. Rome paid that price slowly, painfully, irreversibly. Third, true wealth isn't in coins or credit, it's in trust. When people lose faith in their money, they lose faith in their nation. Today, we stand on a similar edge. Will we repeat Rome's mistakes, or learn from them before it's too late? If history has one lesson, it's this: money is never neutral. It builds empires and it destroys them. So the next time you hear about inflation, national debt, or temporary economic fixes, remember the denarius. Because the story of Rome is an ancient history, it's tomorrow's headline.